Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional owners and continual custodians of the unceded land we meet upon this evening. I pay my respects to their elders past and present and extend my respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people from other communities who are with us this evening. It's so good to see a full house tonight with so many of you joining us for what's going to be a very engaging hour and a bit of music and conversation taking place on what always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So hello. So hello there, my name's Namila Benson. I'm a Pacific Islander broadcast journalist and radio producer. I work over at the National Broadcaster. I'm part of the Tolai people. I hail from the island of Rabaul in Papua New Guinea, but I'm an uninvited guest who lives and works across Wurundjeri and Bunurong land in Naarm, Melbourne. And I'm so thrilled, a little bit nervous though, to be hosting this very special evening at the Sydney Opera House as part of the Antidote Festival. So this evening is called Stories and Songs of Resilience, and we're going to be talking healing, empowerment and resilience through the arts. And I'm incredibly excited to be sitting alongside two gentlemen whose work over many decades continues to shape this nation's music, arts, social and political landscapes. First up, Uncle Archie Roach, who in 2015 was awarded a Member of the Order of Australia for his ongoing and incredible service to the arts as a singer, songwriter, activist and advocate on issues around community justice. A survivor of the stolen generation, Uncle Archie is a powerful performer. He joins us today not only as an artist, but also as part of his organisation, the Archie Roach Foundation. The foundation uses the arts and cultural practice to connect with and support mob in the justice system. Uncle Archie Roach. And Uncle Jack Charles, an accomplished stage and screen actor, a Victorian Senior Australian of the Year, musician, activist, and a little bit of a random fact, a talented potter, a skill that he developed whilst doing time in jail where he ran pottery workshops. Uncle Jack is also a member of the stolen generation, which resulted in a cycle of addiction, crime, and doing time. Today, though, Uncle Jack is no longer caught in that cycle. He still enters prisons these days, but as a community elder and activist, offering his support, lived experience, and advice to mob who are serving time. Uncle Jack is also the ambassador at large for the Archie Roach Foundation. So very, very lovely to be gracing the stage here at the Sydney Opera House this evening with you both. And Uncle Jack, I'm going to start with you because you've graced the Opera House stage a number of times over the years. And we see you joining us this evening, but with clothes on, because there wasn't always a time when you were on this stage at the Opera House where that was the case.
Yes, years ago, when the Sydney Theatre Company were the old tote, we did the Cradle of Hercules here, and with 6 girls from Redfern and Gulpilil from Maningrida, and 17 old tote actors, and that. And one thing led to another during the rehearsals of this show, and I had decided. Well, I was working really, and then the 6 guest. Aboriginal women from Redfern weren't going to be paid the same money, performance money. They said they came and complained to me that they were told that they were going to have to remain on the rehearsal money. There was this difference in those days, and they were upset, and they came to me to complain and said, well, Jack, could you go to bat for us? And I said, yes. We're all ex-New Theatre people, the old Theatre members. You know, the members from Newtown here, they're down in Melbourne and Newcastle. So, and they developed the Antidote Theatre. Consequently, became the Sydney Theatre Company. So I said, no, it's unfair. And I didn't know much about my own circumstances, my own heritage, but obviously I look at Aboriginal, so I was plainly Aboriginal. And I said that I needed to, I can't do this show here. This is not my country. And so unless you paid these girls the correct money, the same wage that 17 Old Tote Theatre members and Gulpilin and I were being paid, I can't do the show. So I packed up a dog and my dilly bag, ready to go back down to Melbourne, and they left it at the 11th hour. And so I was really pissed off over that. So I decided, out of spite, that I would play Bennelong naked. And so here in Sydney, I became that little rebel, rebelling against, this and that and t'other and that. But yeah, I made my mark because of that,
It worked. They've invited you back
I
numerous times.
have still, yes.
And the women got paid properly.
Eh?
And the women got paid properly.
And they got paid. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yes.
So most of us are familiar with both your individual creative platforms, Uncle Archie through music and Uncle Jack through theatre. And I will get to your artistry and creativity later in the show, but I really, really want to get a sense of how this connection, which runs deep, it's about community, culture, creativity, and just where it began. What's the story of the Uncle Jack and Uncle Archie friendship?
You remember meeting me one stage, Archie, and you tell it ever so well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. It was back in the day when I was, pretty new to community, and pretty new to a place called Fitzroy in Melbourne. That's where I found my family, my people. I found a sister up here first in the old Burlington Hotel in Haymarket, and just ran into her by accident. But ended up going to Melbourne and found rest of some other family in Melbourne in Fitzroy. So anyway. It was back in the day when I was knocking around, and back in the Charcoal Lane days when I used to frequent our favourite watering hole, Charcoal Lane. And I remember walking up Gertrude Street into the Builders Arms Hotel, and I'd never seen this fella before, and he had black hair then, and it was shorter. And I said, go up and say hello to the brother. Haven't seen before. And so I went up to you, Jack, and sat down. I said, my name's Archie Roach. He said, and I asked your name. He said, I'm Jack Charles. I said, I haven't seen you here before. I mean, I've been around a little bit, but I haven't seen you here before. And he said, Jack said, yeah, well, I've been away. And I thought, so I asked him, so where you been? He said, I've just been away, just having a bit of a break. And I said, that's good. I still had no idea what he was talking about, so I just went along and so do you, I'm just knocking about. I don't do much myself. Do you do anything? Do you have any work or job? He said, no. Yeah, occasionally, he whispered to me, he said, sort of like I'm a bit of a renovator, or I rearrange stuff and that in people's houses. I thought that was legit. I read, like an interior decorator or something. And I said, that's interesting. He said, listen, come here. I'll whisper to you. He said, I'm a cat burglar. I go, yeah, come on. Yeah, and so I didn't believe him at first. He said, no, it's true. And later on, I soon found that, that's for sure. And that's how I met Jack. But yeah, it's glad that after all these years we got back together, and our paths seem to, it's sort of, you know, we split up, but our paths, Namila, seem to cross again.
Every NAIDOC week in jail, yes.
But yeah, but since you've been, you know, since you've been on the square, you know, we got together and struck up this friendship again, and working together, and I just love Jack, and I love his enthusiasm, his sincerity. Yeah.
The topic of our conversation this evening is entitled Songs and Stories of Resilience, and you're both survivors of one of the most devastating policies of this nation's brutal colonial history, and I'm talking about the stolen generation. How do you both define resilience?
I wouldn't take no for an answer, really. If I got knocked back for anything, you know, about finding out who my family were when our health service first started, I approached the aunties and uncles as to the circumstances of my mother. They all knew her, related to her. So, you know, it was inevitable that I would ask them. And I got a knockback and that. And, you know, anybody else, you know, I think would have shied away from community, but I stuck fat with it because I believed that Collingwood Fitzroy, you know, my first, experience of meeting other Aboriginals was here in Collingwood Fitzroy. Mm-hmm. So I would ignore those that weren't giving me any information, and I would seek it from another way. And that, you know, that's a measure of healing in my own way. It's such a powerful slap in the face to be for your own relatives, you know, the older ones, not putting you, you know, not telling you truth as far as my mother. And that rakes with me right to the day. My mother was involved apparently with a murder up in the blackfella camp in Griffiths during the 50s. And I'm still bedeviled with that story and the outcome and that. But now, you know, in my late years, I get to hear, you know, resilience is to hold back your profound sense of piss-offedness and go for the money, get the right information and that. And I did get the right information, and much of it has only come lately. But so when I felt I wasn't welcomed in Aboriginal Melbourne when I first came in, or the second time I came in as an adult. Maybe it was because of the crushed yellow velvet flares I was wearing, and the fact I was holding the hand of a man who was wearing a caftan, you know, down Gertrude Street, you know. So I thought it put me offside, but no, people accepted me and that. But the older generations thought I felt, you know, that they kept separate from me. So I had to hunt up this information myself. And it's not a matter of going for it right there and then. You know, this takes years and time. And time is a measure, it can give you a measure of healing too. So all the way through it, I got to understand why the aunties and uncles couldn't tell me the full story of what went on up there, because it still resonates. Aboriginal payback law given unto my family and my brother and sisters were, you know, it was something that I had to accept. But I railed against, you know, by finding out the truth in history. And I found now the true story of what went on up there. Resilience is when you come out of jail and you try and make your mark, and especially in the theatre, is just forget you have a criminal record. You know, you're up on stage, and you're another person, you're another character, and etc. It's resilience just to put all that prison stuff behind you, and front the, you know, as though you've got nothing, no care in the world. You know, that's resilience for me. Pick yourself up when you've been slapped down, and that, and keep on going. Yeah.
Uncle Archie, how do you define resilience?
It's a good question. You know, I see it in my people. I see it in my people every day. Yeah, that resilience, and we are a resilient people. And it's, I think, you know, no matter what people tell you or say to you, you know, when I was a little fella, you know, he said, yeah, it's best if you stay with us, it's best if you stay. I'm talking about foster people, parents, and I mean, I loved my the last foster parents I was with, I loved them, they were good people. But other people, you know, the system, the welfare, yeah. As soon as I found out, my mum passed away when I was taken when I was 3. My mum, I was going to high school, Lilydale High School in Victoria, and I never heard from brothers or sisters or anything in my life. And so when I was about 14, my mother passed away. I didn't know this. But my sister wrote a letter to school, and to the school, and that I was attending. And, you know, it was over the loudspeaker, the public address system, and said, would Archibald William Roach please come to the office? So I said, well, that's me, that's my name. My sister only calls me that, especially when she's a bit angry with me. So I went down to the office, and they handed me a letter, and I wasn't sure who it was from. It was written from here, written from a lady called Myrtle Evans from 1 Toxteth Road, Glebe. And I didn't know who she was, but I opened the letter anyway. You know, I don't want to drag on, but this is about resilience, or how I see resilience, Jack, Namila, people. And so I opened the letter from this lady, and not realising who it was. And then the very first line it said, letter, it said, dear brother, Mum passed away a week ago. And that just, you know, that just sort of threw me. And I asked around. I didn't know who she was talking about. And I went back home to my foster parents and showed them the letter, and they shook their head. They didn't know what was going on because they were told nothing either. Yeah. You know, I was the sole survivor, they thought, of a house fire in Dandenong. Oh. The rest of my family died in this fire. And so to sort of start from there, I left my foster parents. I said, I've got to go and find out who I am. And it took me a while. Come up to Sydney, you know, when I was 14. Ended up in the park drinking brown muscat, for goodness sake. And, you know, so going through all that journey, just to get to here now, Jack. But even when I was drinking, that was a form of resilience too. Because no matter what they threw at you, even when you was drinking, you could get up and just say, go and get stuffed. You know, you can stick it right up you. So that's what resilience is to me, is to be able to bounce back from whatever they throw at you, you know, and just say, well, you know, I'm still standing, you know. It's not about how many times you get knocked down. It's about how many times you can get up.
Perfect.
Absolutely. You know, and I think of the ongoing damage and trauma that's caused by the stolen generation, which is going to affect generations still to come. And it's something that this nation has so much difficulty acknowledging, is coming to terms with the intense legalised racism, which continues in many ways, even, you know, in 2017. And you know, I look at the both of you and I do see resilience. I see an incredible amount of pride. And I wonder if being at this stage of your lives where you are elders now across the broader Aboriginal community, is forgiveness a conscious part of resilience?
I think forgiveness is one aspect. Another is never to let it go, though. Always place it in some area where you need to draw upon it and pluck it through and read it through or ponder over it and all that kind of stuff. But forgiveness is very much, you know, I've forget, you know, I mean, through Jack Charles versus the Crown and John Romerell writing a lovely little piece where in the High Court third scene, where I give you know, a decent pitch to have my criminal record expunged, I actually make an apology, and the words he wrote was, I'd like to take this opportunity now to inform the court that I'd like to express my apologies to all those I've stolen from, all those I've disappointed, you know, and I rave into, I stole goods, cash, good jewellery, Gucci sunglasses. But perhaps most precious of all was peace of mind. I understand that. And then I go into, I have done what I have done, and to undo it is, is beyond me. And I do not seek absolution. I've done the time. My crimes weren't the focus I was aiming at, but the punishment, the nature of the punishment I've been dealt is. So, and I copped all the punishments. And, you know, resilience is when you are sent to jail, do something of substance, you know, do something with you while you're in there. I always gravitated towards the education centre, and inevitably, you know, leading to the point where, in the 70s, to develop a pottery shop in a prison, you know, and that's a hoot. Yeah.
What was the name of the pottery?
My pottery shop's in prison, Psycho-Ceramica. You had to be a crackpot to be in the nick in the first place, you know. And I ran it with Aboriginal law, again, because I looked so Aboriginal and everybody, you know, was, I had a powerful presence, I thought, in jail, so I used it to advantage, you know, and that, you know. So I'm only 2 centimetres short of 5 foot, you know. So I ran that pottery shop with, a sense of my sense at that time of Aboriginal law. You weren't allowed to be in Psycho-Ceramica pottery shop, you know, if you were Sarah Paxton or Rohypnol off your tits. Yeah, you would have been like a bull in the china shop. And so I ran it with my sense of Aboriginal law, and everybody took my word.
Yeah.
And the idea then in the prison setting, you know, this is resilience. When the Office of Corrections could take you so seriously enough to give you the key so that that pottery shop would be open on the weekends and Christmas holidays. It was a place of sanctuary in this tight little community, maddening tight little community where a lot of anger is around. But it was a place of sanctuary for me, and I made sure that nobody, had problems in Psycho-Ceramica. Yeah. Yes.
Uncle Archie, do you think forgiveness is a conscious part of maintaining resilience?
Forgiveness. I think it is. I mean, I had to stop. I don't know if it was hate or resenting. Maybe resenting. Hate's a strong word, but resenting what happened to me resenting what happened to my mother, my father, and my family. Resenting, the bullying that got into me in Fitzroy, give me a kick every now and then. I had to not hold that hate or resentment in because it was just making me crook. It was making me sick when you got that bad feeling inside, that bad energy. It was negative energy, bad energy inside me. It was making me sick. So I had to forgive what, had happened to me. I had to forgive the people because, I don't know, they were very short-sighted, very ignorant of who we were, of our beauty, of our culture, of our love, as a people. And so I had to forgive their ignorance. And that's why I turned it around, because they couldn't see who we really were. Had their own, standards, that they wanted us to live to. But they couldn't see that the standards that we had were so high anyway. So I forgave that ignorance. I had to in order to continue and carry on,
I might get you, Uncle Archie, to perform a song for us of your choice.
Yeah. It's very warm, was it? Just me, Jake. I just put that in This is a song, like I said, I knocked around a bit. And I look back fondly on my life as, in the parks and the lanes. Old Johnny Mack, a good mate of mine, he said, we are Archie with the darkies from the parky. So I was a parky, I'm not ashamed of that. But before that, we had a name we called our school, drinking school, we called it F Troop, coming from Fitzroy. But every 6 o'clock in the evening, all the grown men, I was a bit younger, I suppose, we'd go home or to somebody's place and tune into F Troop. The old F Troop on TV. And with old Wild Eagle and Agon, and all them. So we call ourselves F Troop. And after Fitzroy as well, Fitzroy. So this is a song about that. I suppose this song is reminiscing about those old days and the passing of an era. I was only 15 years when I met my brother. He looked at me and his face lit up for joy. And after the tears, he talked about our mother. Held me close and whispered about a boy. I remember drinking wine and talking with my brother. I had a drink and he didn't think I should. But I told him I could handle it. And I said, let's get another. Sitting in the kitchen in Dyke Street, Collingwood. Now we take a walk to Fitzroy. Early in the morning, when sometimes family life became a strain. And stand outside the cellars, greeting friends we knew were coming. We grabbed a quart and walked to Charcoal Lane. I remember sitting in the laneway with my brother, sharing cigarettes and company. Drinking with some friends we knew who said they knew our father. Sitting in the laneway, my brother and me. The lanes were not forgotten, but the parks became our haven. And everybody knew the park is law. And I see my brother standing on that hillside, and he's saying, F Troop doesn't ride here anymore. Whew. And I remember dancing around the jukebox with my brother, dancing to and singing, I can help, excuse me, acting just like children in the joy we gave each other, dancing around the jukebox in the Champion Hotel. We're dancing around the jukebox in the Champion Hotel.
Uncle Archie Roach with F Troop.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
Uncle Archie Roach.
Sorry about that.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Sorry.
Oh, that was magnificent. Thank you so much for sharing that beautiful song on this
took
stage
us on a
with
trip
us.
there, eh?
Yeah,
Yes.
very powerful, so powerful. Uncle Jack, I will speak with you now because you're a part of Uncle Archie's foundation and the amazing work that you're all doing there. I want to know, because you're an ambassador, or you're the ambassador at large for the Archie Roach Foundation, and you know, when you're connecting with young mob on the inside, these are people who are in the justice system. It's a system that often fails them repeatedly, and they're in a dark place, feeling angry, sad, perhaps resistant to engaging. What do you see in terms of the ways that the arts and songs and storytelling help with their healing process?
Well, they're very much aware of Archie, and they know who I am, and they know Nancy Bates too.
Oh, the amazing
a
Nancy
singer-songwriter,
Bates.
and when I first, Archie and I were there last year when that first riot started.
Yeah.
We got an intimation of what was happening right there and then before it actually kicked off.
So, yeah.
We realised that just asking the lads while we're having a barbecue, and many of them related to us, and we asked them, well, there was some knocking going on in the unit nearby, and I said, what's that knocking going on there? And the young fella, Charles, he says, oh, Uncle, two fellas wanted to come along, a Noongar lad and somebody else, but they mucked up, so they're in lockdown. Too many lockdowns, Uncle. So here's the first information that I'm receiving from this mob here, that their bitches, their complaints. We get too many lockdowns, Uncle. If an officer doesn't turn up, it's a 21, 23-hour lockdown and that, you know. So that's what I got out of that first visit with you, Archie, into Parkville. You know, ironically, the same place I had been forced to go to. In the old days, when you failed your foster mum or your adopted mum and dads, you were locked up inevitably, and you had to, because you were a ward of the state, and I was under the Aboriginal Welfare Protection Board or whatever they were. Yeah. And but my boss bailed me out, and so I didn't spend that long there, you know. But I felt it. All the other failed white and black kids were in this institution, and they were brothers. We knew them well, you know, and they had failed their Catholic and Salvation Army mobs and that, and and so we ended up starting to develop criminal records. So it was a crime to undertake. Me and to come into Collingwood Fitzroy at the behest of my mates at work to see if you can find family there. And I thought, because I was a worker, that I would have, you know, that I would be allowed this. But, you know, as soon as I came into Collingwood Fitzroy, and I wrote it in my show, Jack Charles versus the Crown, you know, I get pulled up by an old black fella on Gertrude Street and Napier Street, Charles. So I'm known straight away, and of course he ushers me into the De Wilder's arms and that, and of course every face practically is black, and they all come up and introduce themselves to me as an uncle and auntie. So there I was on the way of receiving this information that has been hidden from me. You know, every opportunity I asked my foster mum, you know, where is my family? And the Aboriginal Protection Board bloke who used to come around, you know, I asked him and that. So we weren't told. It wasn't allowed. Yeah, we weren't allowed to know our heritage and who we were related to, and that. So actually, it was a failed social experiment, because most of us, you know, had Aboriginal people that were stolen and that were shoved out from the institutions at 14, you know, to counsel ourselves, you know, the blind leading the blind, and that, and you know, we would inevitably, you know, find trouble and strife and end up in the nick. So, so that's, you know, that's par for the course for many of us, you know. Yes. It was a journey that many of us had, you know, variations on a theme. Yeah. Yes.
Uncle Archie, I want to touch on the work that you do through your foundation, but before we get to that, I really want to ask you if there was, what was the impetus for setting up this foundation? Was it a build-up of what you'd been seeing across the justice system, or was there one particular incident where you thought, it's time, we've got to step in for our people now?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, I think it was something built up over time. You know, you could see, you know, it was a blind man could actually see that the you know, the institutions and the jails and the system that incarcerated young our people, you know, wasn't really working. And so, you know, a lot of them were sent there and set up, Jack says himself, to fail. You know, to go out and be it's a revolving door. And that was the status quo. That's what people expected. And I thought there must be something that we can do, but it wasn't just that. It's giving back as well, Namila. Giving back to what people had given me to help me sort of make some sort of sense, of life, and to straighten myself out, and sober up, and to just directed me, to a better way, a better way of life, and so to start the foundation, I wanted to be that signpost as well, like a lot of people were for me.
Yeah.
Signpost to a better way, or to and so it's also part of that. Partly, it's giving back.
Yeah.
Passing on what's been given to me as well. And but just because you can't forget your people. You can't forget, and you can't think that it's all right. You've got to start doing something yourself, and it's got to be Aboriginal driven.
Yeah.
It's got to be us. Us that does that, because too many people been thinking that they know what's best for us and trying to drive, what we want to do. He said, "Oh, we'll do this." I said, no, we're going to do it our way.
Yeah.
So it has to be driven by the people.
Yeah.
First Peoples.
We know the national narrative of the First Nations people of this country is a problematic one, and mainly because it's mostly controlled by non-Aboriginal people. And when it comes to Australia's youth justice system, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander young people are still significantly overrepresented, which is in itself a reflection of the gross institutionalised racism that exists in this country. Having two elders, two uncles on the front line of carrying out this amazingly important and necessary work, connecting with mob, what do you see, Uncle Jack? That visibility, we know it's important, but what do you see on young mob faces when the two of you, two elders, walk in?
Well, I noticed that there's no fidgeting amongst them. They're sitting forwards on their seat and their eyes are looking at us.
Yeah.
And they're hearing, and there's not much fidgeting, and the staff will tell us that, Nancy has gotten into the ears of the young ones for a fortnight lately, and she gives us this information that they're asking about you, Uncle, and Uncle Archie Roach. How are they? How are we? And that. So that's positive, and that. But I for one, I haven't been into the Parkville College or the area where the 10-year-olds are. We in Victoria, we jail our 10-year-olds. To give them a head start to become dedicated recidivists. So that's where we need to be. We need them to see us, to hear us, and on a more regular basis, So we're going to foist upon the Daniel Andrews and the Office of Corrections the notion of the Archie Roach Foundation to bleed onto every institution. I'd like it to even be the institutions for those of the bewildered, and that, if you will. And that, we need local Aboriginal elders, men and women, going into these institutions and keeping the mob in there apprised of their culture, and many of them don't know. And even the staff need a wake-up call. Perhaps in prisons we need to give staff Aboriginal awareness program, and etc. Because some of them young ones that don't look Aboriginal, red hair, hazel-eyed, blonde hair, blue-eyed, professing to be Aboriginal, are denied that right to be Aboriginal by the staff. And we hear that, So the idea is that on a regular basis, these people get to see us regularly, and we'll open up. They're already starting to open up with Nancy and that. But through other jobs and etc., I haven't been able to lock in any programs yet. It's coming, but I want to start. I see the next generation of writers in their young ones. rappers. Even in the adult prisons, I see potential in that. So, you know, we see the potential. We've got to get them to believe that that they are the leading black light of the future for others. Yeah.
Uncle Archie. Uncle, when it comes to your foundation, the Archie Roach Foundation, you've established a council of elders. Coming from Islander culture, I know why this is necessary, significant and very, very important. How do you explain why it is so important to have the involvement of elders?
Well, elders, especially to the young people incarcerated. And Nancy said it herself, you know, when she finished, you know, talking to the boys and try to work out a program to do with them, cultural program. She went up to all of them and gave them a hug. Gave them a hug, auntie hug.
Yes.
Gave them a big auntie hug. You know how aunties hug you?
Yes, yeah. Oh.
Do you remember how aunties hug you? You just squeeze the life out of it, no. But give you a big hug, you know, and let you know that you're loved, you know, and you're important to them, you know. And that's just one aspect. And going in and being uncle as well.
We're doing what in the old days, before the white fellas came, the young ones, when it was time to lead the women folk, the mums, the aunties, the sisters, and etc., to around Melbourne, is to traipse on up to Hillsville around there and work with the men to learn law and etc. And further things and that, you know. That's missing out of our things now, you know, out of our, you know, it's down to father, you know, advising and being a father to a son or a daughter, and that a lot of that's missing with many of the prisoners in our institutions, and that because their own fathers and mothers are struggling too. So the foundation is in this unique position to make inroads even there. You know, we've been telling them that the general purpose of the Archie Roach Foundation is that we would have buses to pick up their families and take them in to visit them. Many of them don't get visits. And that, so it's us as elders in the community to latch onto their parents and take them into the institution to visit them, and to also pick them up when their times comes, to take them back to their family,
provide
or
accommodation
to an environment that's safer for them to continue their journey of that missing element, the nurturing and that. We need to get back to nurturing our young ones and the older ones too.
Yeah, the older ones too. And that's how it's important. The elders are important just to, but it's also, you know, like some of them being disconnected to community, disconnect to culture. And I know when I was a young bloke, there was no link-up. The old fellas were my link-up, because they'd look at you and they'd ask you, wouldn't ask you who you were. The first thing they'd ask you was, well, what's your dad's name? What's your mother's name? I think. Didn't ask me my name. And if I knew who that was, you know, I'd tell them. And they'd go through and said, oh, what's the name's brother? So-and-so's cousin, you know. This is his uncle. And once they got through that, through all the family and the extended family, once they worked their way through that, they'd come to you and go, I know who you are. And that's what we also do as elders. So, you know, like young fellas you said before, maybe, you know, wouldn't be accepted as an Aboriginal. But also, always have to ask them, well, what's, you know, and they might know the mother or father or family's name, so we'd ask them, so what's your name? Tell us your surname. And they come out with it. And, you know, more times than not, we'd know who that child was or who his family was. And say, oh, I know your mob. I know where they're from. So that's an important role to play as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uncle Jack, when you reflect on the role that you're playing now as part of the Archie Roach Foundation, do you ever think about how big a difference it would have made to your time that you were in jail if you'd had a community elder visit you?
Oh, I would have loved somebody of my vintage or even younger. Healers can come in all shapes and sizes, you know, to come in and tweak my drugged up, mucked up your conscience, and that wake-up call. I suppose many have advised me and cajoled me or waggled a finger and stamped a foot and pointed a bone, but none of it obviously worked because it took me well into my 60s before I started to realise I shouldn't be using this white powder. So I got to basically thinking that, well, every time I was shooting this white powder, I was behaving like a white fella. You know, and doing things no black fellas should do. But there you go.
What was the defining moment for you, Uncle Jack, where you just had to draw deep and go on your strength and resilience and just go, enough is enough, I have to get my life back on track?
After the Murray program, I left the Loddon Jail to specifically be my community's local Featherfoot Kadacha man lawman, and also to finish off the documentary and quickly jump off the methadone, 75 mil. And it took me 2.5 years before I was pretty comfortable with myself to undertake the journey of being a U-Butte local Featherfoot Kadacha man of the Collingwood Cemetery Strip. You know? And it's worked. It's worked now. I'm it, and everybody knows. And that, you know, so I'm able to advise people that had come up to me, young ones and older ones who have had some, you know, immense problems that they just cannot talk to anybody, psych, and that people and that about sexual abuses and abuses that have happened to them, and that. So I have quiet talks on the Smith Street Strip and Rose's Cafe or Friends of the Earth with various people, or go down to their units and that. So, you know, I contribute to the well-being or awareness of those that are struggling to find themselves and a guidance and a direction in life.
Is it ever difficult for you, though, Uncle Jack, going back into a system that was a huge part of the damage that was systematically done to you over decades? Or is it, do you feel
jails, you know, when you're raised up, when you're plucked at, you know, at an extreme young age, you know, 4 months like me, from Royal Women's Hospital and placed into City Mission Babies Home in Brunswick, and then at age 2 placed into the Box Hill Boys Home, you develop a thick skin. And of course I was the only Aboriginal kid in there during my whole 12 years tenancy in that Box Hill Boys Home, so there didn't seem to be any racism going on, although some kids call me, you know, Blackie, and you know, they tell me now, because they come up to me now in their 60s and 70s and say, Jack, I remember you bashing me one time, and that is, oh, what for? I said, oh, I called you Blackie, Jack, and you chased me around the oval. I said, what happened? Oh, you bashed me, Jack. Oh, I'm sorry, mate. So I'm apologising to them and that, you know. But the point is, you know, that's significant that everybody had known that I was the only black fella there until Kutcher Edwards and his brothers walked into the Box Hill Boys Home about a month before I left, and, ironically, my brother Archie. You know, unbelievable. Yes. So, look, you know, it's hard to bounce back from something like that and to place things, as I say, in a box or in perspective and that, and to be able to draw upon it when needs must call upon it and that, but to strike out and develop some initiative on your own, you know. Yes.
Through the Archie Roach Foundation, do you both get a sense of what these young people are thinking of once they enter back into the outside world again? Because I think of how fast life is now with devices and just even in in terms of the shift of how we interact and engage with one another. Like you can be out and about and sitting across from someone for dinner, but people are just like this. Is that something that you talk about to young people, is just how fast the world is changing?
Not so much. I hadn't realised it like that, but what am I going to do when I go out?
Yeah.
And that, So we've worked it out that, the idea is we need to actually, under the Archie Roach Foundation, members need to go to local councils in small towns and large towns and in the city and convince the mayors, lady mayoresses or the councils and that to give us one of your empty buildings.
Yeah.
The highway bypasses, you see, you've got a lot of these solid edifices there and they're still in good nick. I'll give you 3 peppercorns for the 99-year lease of these to develop a workshop. And why we call it workshop is you do have to work on yourself. You do have to do something, and it's work. And you have to work at it to clean your act up and etc. But you have to be in a safe environment to be able to do that.
That's right.
A workshop with all its all the necessary equipment in there, can give you that measure of healing, and that through rewire your trams and trains and lead you into becoming a better person in your own right. And we need to say that you're not such a bad person. Things were designed for you to continually fail yourself, your mum, your dad, your families, and etc., your community, and that. How about the community invite you back in and start, programs where you could start working in your own fashion, in your own time, into a place where you're more comfortable with. And the idea is that it has to be done without drugs of addiction.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uncle Archie, we live in a country which, like a number of countries around the world, to be black is to be politicised. And I think of the politics of blackness, and politics in general can really make people squirm and switch off. Yet you've been able to reflect and humanise politics in a very intimate way through your music. So I guess getting back to resilience, when you're in this creative space and writing a song about quite difficult topics, how do you block out that negative noise to create something that's ultimately about healing and empowerment?
You bring it back to its basics, bring it back to its, to its human. It's human. You got to bring it right back to that sense of being, a human being, a person that loves, that feels, that are crying. So you got to bring the songs back to where people can connect and understand. Like a song like maybe Took the Children Away, where people can appreciate. All sorts of people from all walks of life, black, white, brindle, whatever, have said, I don't know what I would do if my children were taken from me. So you bring it down to that basic human level where people understand that, if it was reversed, if we were taken over by another country, that looked at everybody, and not just the black fellas, but looked at you as well, white fellas and all, and took your kids off you, how would you feel? And they feel that through the song. And it's not just talking about the Koori kids, Murray kids, Noongar kids, Nanga kids. It's talking about kids, children, And so, yeah, in most of your songs, you've got to, I suppose, you bring it down to a basic human level where everybody can appreciate it.
Can we please have another song?
All right. Hope I don't joke on this one. No. It's these songs, some of them I haven't revisited for a while, and the one about Old Brother Boy sort of hit me when I was singing it, because
Archie's guitar's still on the plane up in Brisbane on its way back. And his bag.
yeah. So it's another song about. It's about being taken, but not so much taken away. I have stories of my mum and dad. I didn't know them, but I've got that many stories about them. It's like I knew them. And when I walk down go back to the old mission where my mother's from, people still live there. And I walk down the old mission road, or around the mission, down the river, and through these stories of my mother and father, I can see my father, what he used to do. I can see my mother, what she used to do, and uncles and aunties through the stories. That's why stories are so important. And so I wrote this song, and I was walking down the old mission road one day, and I could see my mum and dad, and they were walking with me. Now I wish I had grown with my mother back home, 'cause I miss her sweet kisses and her smile. And when I'm alone, I wish I had known my mother for just a while. Won't you walk with me, darling, just a couple of miles? Won't you tell me them stories of when I was a child? I'd be so happy as the stories unfold. Won't you walk with me, darling, down that old mission road? Now I wish I'd gone fishing with my father, I'm still missing, and the touch of his strong, gentle hands. Now I'm gone from the mission, 'cause someone's decision kept me away from that man. Won't you walk with me, darling, just a couple of miles? Won't you tell me them stories of when I was a child? 'Cause I'd be so happy as them stories unfold. Won't you walk with me, darling, down that old Mission Road. So kiss your mother tonight. Hold your father tight and keep your family near. Unless one day they might slowly fade out of sight. Just reflections in Archie. Won't you walk with me, darling? Just a couple of miles. Won't you tell me them stories of when I was a child? 'Cause I'd be so happy as the stories unfold. Won't you walk with me, darling, down that old Mission Road? Won't you walk with me, darling, down that old Mission Road?
Thank you so much, Uncle Archie Roach, performing Old Mission Road. The end of this evening has nearly come about, but before we finish up, now, Uncle Jack, I know it's going to be a very special day on Wednesday, because a little birdie told me it will be your birthday. 74.
74. Oh, okay.
And I think that we need to celebrate with a birthday cake, if we could bring one on stage. Thank you, Patrice. Kappa Greco. And on the count of three, I think we should sing Uncle Jack happy birthday. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Uncle Jack. Happy birthday to you.
Hip hip, hooray! Hip hip, hooray! Hip hip, hooray! Pat, Patrice. We're fast running out of time. I actually had 8 pages of questions. I think I've got through a quarter of them, which is a bit of a win.
We're talking too much, Jack.
You talk too much, don't I?
No, we do.
I wanted to finish up by asking you, as two people who are considered national treasures in this country and doing what you do through your creativity and sharing it with the masses in such a generous, warm and loving way, you've both carved out really special and unique places within the arts world. If not for the arts, what else do you think you'd both be doing? A potter, maybe?
I'd be in jail doing pottery, eh? Doing my masters.
I probably wouldn't be here for one.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and no, I think, yeah. Well, I loved to draw when I was a kid. Draw and sketch and draw people in clothes. Well, no, I mean, I used to like drawing, sort of clothes and designing, things. So oddly enough, I probably, at least probably commercial art, or even dabble in fashion design.
Yeah. Well, we can't talk creativity, healing and resistance without getting you both to perform a song. We've sung you Happy Birthday, Uncle Jack.
That's it.
Can I please ask both of you to perform a song for us to take us out with?
Right, okay.
before I do, I'd like to thank Namila Benson too for that.
And just for one, I like to thank the Opera House and the and this mob up here, Antidote, the Antidote mob. This is revolutionary. The notion, the Archie Roach Foundation, making a play to be leading lights in our institutions in Victoria. It'll spread up here, I'm told, by the local mobs up around here that are seated here. So there you go. You see, we're on a roll. You know, we have been waiting for something like the Archie Roach Foundation to come in and make a difference in our institutions. So I'm blessed, and I'm blessed you all for coming to see us and hear us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Ready, Jack?
Yep.
If your burden too heavy, that it's gonna break you, and you might go crashing to the ground. Just keep yourself steady, Jack, and don't let it take you on down, take you on down. Yeah.
I'm here beside you, Archie. Don't you forget it. I'm with you walking down this road. Give up what's inside you. You won't regret it. Together we can lighten this load.
Oh,
we won't cry, we won't cry.
Oh, we will lift our spirits high, up to the sky. You did the same for me, Jack, when I was in trouble, brother. I wanted to disappear out of sight, but you wouldn't let me. You were so stubborn. You brought me out of that dark night. And oh, we won't cry, we won't cry. Oh, we will lift our spirits high, up to the sky. And oh, we won't cry, we won't cry. Spirits high, up to the sky. Yeah.
We won't cry.
We won't cry.
Yeah. We
We'll
won't cry.
fly. You and me, my brother. Go.
A beautiful, my mic on? A beautiful, whoops. Thank you. Yes. Can I have my mic on? Please thank the uncles. Is my mic on? Oh, here we go. That was such a beautiful live and intimate rendition of We Won't Cry on stage here at the Sydney Opera House as part of Antidote, and that song features on Uncle Archie's beautiful 2012 album Into the Bloodstream. Please get out there and support the incredible work of the Archie Roach Foundation. You can make a tax-deductible donation. Head to their website archieroach.com/foundation to support the uncles doing incredible and necessary work across and within the community. Thank you so much to the Sydney Opera House for having us this evening.
Thank you.
Also to the Uncles Magic Team, Jill Shelton and Patrice Capagreco. Another hearty round of applause. Uncle Jack Charles, Uncle Archie Roach.